Hello, I'm Michelle Jorgensen with the Mount Mahogany Steak Self-Reliance videos. So this month we're going to be talking about fuel. Again, fuel isn't something you think about a lot, but you need to in an emergency because if there were some kind of a disaster that occurred, we would not be able to buy fuel. First of all, it would be gone very, very quickly. That's one of the first things that people are going to buy. Water and fuel probably are going to be out of the stores, gone. Also, the pumps rely on electricity. So anything like gas, anything of that sort is going to require electricity to actually pump it out of the ground and into a container that you want to store it in. So you're going to need to store ahead of time if you're going to want any kind of fuel. So let's talk about a few uses that you're going to need that fuel for. First one is generator. So if you have a generator that you're going to be providing yourself with some kind of electricity, you need a way to run it, right? Second is chainsaw. It may be that in some kind of a disaster, there'd be a lot of downed things that we need to clean up. Well, chainsaw requires gasoline as well. Car. In the case of an evacuation, you're needing to get out of here. Well, the worst thing that could happen is you get in your car and you realize you're at a quarter of a tank. You're not going to make it very far. So I know a lot of people, and I did this for a little while. I need to get back on it now that I'm just saying this to you, but they never let their tank go down below half. So that no matter what, in any kind of circumstance or any situation, they always would have at least a half a tank. And I think that that's a good rule of thumb to follow. Another use for fuel is cooking, right? You're going to need some kind of fuel to cook. We just talked about that. You're also going to need some kind of fuel for heat. So to be able to stay warm in any kind of situation, you're going to need that fuel. And then lighting. We are so accustomed to this bright light world that we live in. We did a Pioneer weekend a little while ago where we turned off all the electricity in our home for the weekend. The two things that I noticed that were most noticeable to me was, number one, lights. Oh my gosh, everything is so lit up in our world any time of the day, right? We can flip on lights at 2 a.m. if we want to and see anything we want. It was so dark without the electricity. The other thing I noticed was sound. There's a lot of things just making noise in our world that we get really used to. So we would be without light. We'd have to get some fuel for that. All right, so I want you to consider, what would I need for a 2-week lights out period, electricity out, lost our utilities. Just kind of plan for that. So that's the goal for this month. Let's just think about 2 weeks. How could I prepare for that? The hardest thing during that 2 weeks would be keeping warm. Now, it's in the middle of the summer right now for me, so keeping warm is not nearly as much of a concern, but in any kind of a winter month time, you're going to be very concerned about keeping warm, and it's going to be the largest consumer of fuel for you. So let's talk about a few things before we begin talking about individual fuel sources. Safety. I have reiterated this in multiple videos, but please remember, anytime you have an open fire, anywhere it's consuming oxygen. If you have it in a closed home because it's cold outside, you close off all your windows, you put something with an open flame going, you are going to lose all of your oxygen and you're going to die of carbon monoxide poisoning. So keep something vented. That was a really good blessing in those log cabins because they had a lot of draftiness going on. You know, it kept them alive because of all their open fuel or open fire sources. So make sure you have those things as well because we don't have very drafty homes anymore. Okay, gasoline. So gasoline, the first three things that we talked about, right, is needing fuel, a generator, chainsaw, car. Those are all in need of gasoline. So what should you store? 5 gallons at minimum, 25 gallons is even better. What you can do is add a stabilizer to gasoline. What it will do is lengthen the amount of time that you can store it for because gas actually gets kind of gummy and you can't use it after a while. So make sure that's legal where you are here in Pleasant Grove. That's okay to do 25 gallons, but you need to add a stabilizer to it so it'll last a little bit longer. And then use it up if you're not using it and replenish it, replace it. Firewood. It's nice to have 1 quart of firewood. A quart just means a whole bunch, right? in my lingo. A big old stack. So please, stick it behind your house, stick it behind your garage. I don't care where you stick it. Just have a stack of firewood available that you can use if you need it. Propane. Remember, propane has to be used outside, but you can store it inside. So it really should be stored inside of some kind of a shed or garage area. A typical barbecue tank, which is this much, is going to be good for about 2 weeks. So that's a great storage for 2 weeks right there is your typical barbecue tank. Make sure it's full. Remember, make sure it's full. If it's empty, it doesn't do you any good at all. Charcoal. This is another good one. This is really easy to store, other than it takes up some space, obviously, but it's light, it's easy to store, it lasts forever. If you have 125 pounds of this, it's going to last you about a month. So this is a really easy one to store. This is 12.5 pounds, so obviously I'm going to need 8 of these or so. That's not that much. Throw it in the back side of your garage somewhere, inside. and store some charcoal. Kerosene. Okay, kerosene, I don't actually have some here because I have big jugs of it and I didn't want to pull them out. Kerosene can be used indoors. So if you have, I have a kerosene heater, so I can use it indoors. If something were to happen and it was in the dead of the winter, disaster would happen, what I would do is I would find a room. We've discussed which room it would be. Probably would be my bedroom. We'd use my bedroom and we would close off everything and we would put that kerosene heater in there because it can be used indoors. It's a little stinky, but it would work okay. And you want to heat the smallest room possible. Because our big houses, we don't need to heat everything. We're not going to be using everything. So you kind of pull everybody into one little place and you'd use some kind of a heater. It's also lower flammability, kerosene is, so it's a nice one to store. It's not one we use very much in our world today, but you can find kerosene heaters, used kerosene heaters on KSL and other classifieds. Find yourself a kerosene heater and stir some kerosene. It's great for fuel. Okay, white gas, that is otherwise known as Coleman gas. We talked about this in the cooking section. So this can be used for cooking, which is great. This also has a very long shelf life. I would recommend storing 5 gallons of this because it's really good for cooking. Again, outside only. Lamp oil can be used inside. I think that pioneers had better eyes than we did. That's what I think, because man, when you use a lamp, you can't see hardly anything. We did that on that Pioneer weekend. We couldn't see hardly anything, but it is light. It is light. It is sooty. This burns kind of dirty. So, but you know what? I wouldn't be worried about that. If I didn't have any electricity and I needed to be able to see something, I'd probably use my lamp oil. Butane is another thing that we talked about in cooking. If you have a case of these, they figure if you cook it 3 meals a day, it's going to last you a month, or a can a day, so 30 cans would be a month's worth. So even if you get 15 cans, that's 2 weeks worth. Remember, that's your goal for right now. Butane is an easy thing to store, and it doesn't go bad. Batteries are the other fuel source to store. I know it's not something you think about as a fuel source, but it is, because think of all your flashlights, your AM/FM radio, all those kinds of things run on batteries. So if you're out of batteries, you're out of luck. So make sure to store some batteries. They store better out of your equipment than in your equipment. So if you have it inside of a radio or something, take the batteries out, store them separate from the equipment, and they'll usually have about a 5 to 10 year shelf life. So they'll store quite a while. So these are some ideas for fuel to store. So goal this month is store for 2 weeks. Whether that's a full tank of propane, 4 bags of barbecue briquettes, a little bit of Coleman fuel, 15 cans of butane. Whatever it is, just pick, okay, I want to do 1 fuel source and I'm going to store 4 so that if something were to happen, I'd be okay for 2 weeks. So that's the goal for this month. Thanks so much for watching today.